don't get to teach Bible study, Tess. You're all done with teaching Bible studies. But your foot is not on a thing.
Yeah, it's footish. Got my cast off, or whatever you call it. They call it a splint, but it seemed like a cast.
You keep going. I'm gonna light some incense.
And if I'm going places, I have to wear the boot. And I look like I have a chicken leg now.
It did atrophy quite a bit, didn't it?
Yep. Just takes a few weeks.
Well, especially when you're as active as you usually are, the difference is just so immediately obvious.
Yeah, it's
when
pretty
one of your
bad.
legs is compensating.
It's pretty bad.
We should measure your calf circumferences at some point. Because this one's like half as big as the other one.
Today I tried doing stuff without crutches, and my foot said, ow, clunk, ow, clunk, ow, like that.
So you had a lovely time.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
It was fine. It just, it's definitely sore.
That's understandable, poor thing.
I didn't feel like I was going to fall down or anything like that. It was just, I don't know, it's hard to describe. It's just, put the weight on.
Did they give you any sort of, timeline on when you could potentially do some running again?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard from the internet that, people who have that injury and get surgery, and specifically athletes who do, they can usually get back to it in starting to do those things in 3 to 4 months after the surgery.
Oh wow, so end of March.
Yeah.
Feels like a long time away.
Yeah. It's not that long.
It's simultaneously so long and so short because this year's been so fucked up already.
Yeah. It really has.
It's a
so
really
bad.
upsetting year.
So bad. I'm gonna need more of this in about 2 minutes.
Well, coconut water is good for you, so you can have more of that in about 2 minutes. I started a book that a friend left. And I don't have her permission to use it on the pod, but it's called Lilith by Nikki Marmory. I got through just the first part, so the first 50 pages or so this morning, and it was very interesting seeing that. So the mythology, of course, behind Lilith is that originally God created man and woman, and this is based on the first couple chapters of Genesis, and the first account of God creating man and woman, it just says he created man and woman, and then the next account, it says that he took a rib out of Adam's side and fashioned Eve from it. So the general consensus among people who believe in Lilith is that originally Adam and Lilith were the ones created, and they were supposed to be equal, and she rebelled against him, and because of that, she was... And the accounts of what she did vary. In this book, it's that he was super greedy and always lying to her, and she did not want to be submissive sexually. And a lot of them have that same theme, and some of the themes go as far as saying Lilith slept with demons, and she was just a horny asshole, and that's why she got thrown out of the Garden of Eden in the first place. So she was removed, and God created a new woman called Eve. And if you're Baptist, you don't believe any of that, of course. But it's really interesting because Lilith in this one, she leaves the garden willingly, and the angels try to come find her and bring her back, and she's like, I'm not going back to that asshole, after he raped her. And she explores the world, finds out that everything was a lie and that there's plenty of other people out there, and he was telling her falsehoods the entire time because he was just so obsessed with himself, or Adam was so obsessed with himself. And she goes back eventually just to see what's up, and there's a woman there, and it's Eve, and she just looks dead, and she's doing everything Adam tells her to do, and she goes to get water, and Lilith kind of ambushes her there and says, hey, you know you don't have to do all this, and this is really bad for you, right? And you don't have any self-efficacy right now, and you're kind of sad. And Eve runs away, so Lilith turns into a snake and finds her at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And since the snake is a metaphor for wisdom, she convinces Eve to eat the fruit, and that's how the fall of mankind essentially happens, and everybody is cursed. So the idea there is that the difference between Lilith, the mad person who wanted to be equal, is that Eve was not created to be a person, she was created to be a helpmeet. And that's why she was created from a rib instead of actually having given birth. I think the funniest line in there so far was like, what, does that make Adam her mother? So that part was interesting. But I wanted to hear what you know about the notion of helpmeet and how it affected your life growing up in a super fundamentalist religion.
I don't even remember. It's been so long since I thought about it. I don't remember hardly anything. The word comes, it's a New Testament phrase, isn't it? Help me.
I'm just
gonna
remember. Just vamp test. Remember what you remember, and we'll just see where we go from there.
I don't know. I always just, part of it is I don't remember. The other part of it is I always kind of bucked against anything like that anyways. Just in my own way. I was never good at being rebellious, but but in my mind, the submissive women thought process was always, it was probably one of the harder cognitive dissonance things for me, because like, I mean, my own mom did everything. She ran her own business. She did all the finances in the house. She like yeah, the Baptist picture of the submissive woman was not in my house, just for starters. Right? Like, just, I mean, in her mind it probably was. Like, she was doing all of these, like, raising kids and did, doing the cooking and all of those things. Those things did exist. But as a kid, I started doing those things and everything she did. And so it was always really confusing to me when I would read the Bible or hear sermons about the woman submitting to the man, and I think I had, and I know it was cognitive dissonance because I knew what I saw and what I was hearing were very different things, but the Bible's always right. So Paul would say that women must submit to their husbands, wives must submit to your husbands. It's like, okay, well, my parents must do what the Bible is, so whatever that means, it looks like what my mom does, but that doesn't really match everything I know about the word submit. So it was always confusing to me, my whole life. And then I met you, and it was kind of similar. Like, you had a college degree and a similar thing I did, and we did we met doing a project together that was very equal partners type thing. Right? We were just both gonna get the grade what we did, and so again, it was very cognitive dissonance for me to, especially going to like the small churches me and you ended up going to afterwards that started to strongly emphasize these ideas about women submitting and all of the ideas of women not being able to speak and getting more into those circles. And it was that started to shock me in those cases because I hadn't run up strongly against those ideas again in my life. Like even in my church, like they would give lip service to it, but in action, women did a lot. They spoke on stage a lot. They did worship leading. There were women on stage. So it wasn't full equality by any stretch of the imagination. It was just enough for me to be able to. Um, it was enough eye service that I was able to fit it in my cognitive dissonance and not think about it very hard when I was younger. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it makes sense. And if you had to define the term submission from what your understanding of it was at that point in time, how do you think you would do that?
When I was younger?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I guess if you asked me point blank, I would have like gone to just like there was that kind of basic idea that the man of the house was the last word, and that's probably the only thing I could have thought of that because I heard it, and so like, and I didn't know always how my parents made decisions. Like you don't always see that as a kid.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe that's how it happens. I don't know. It didn't seem that important to me as a kid, but that's probably what I would have thought of. Was just like somehow the man's supposed to have the last word, but like I wouldn't have had a lot of good examples of it. I don't think off the top of my head in my actual lived experience. That was obvious to me. I'm sure I saw it. And I'm sure it happened because that's the world we lived in. It was very patriarchal and existed that way, but it's not how I saw it, right? It was not how it was necessarily always presented to me. It's not how I understood everything that was happening. And I when I got older and I learned more about the patriarchal system and what it was supposed to look like, and I could recognize more things that happened that were more patriarchal and stuff like that because I understood it better and where it came from. And but as as a young person, as a young boy specifically, that's how I was raised. It was hard for me to see, given how my very specific house and church were. It was not as strongly highlighted in those places as they were, like specifically in the small churches me and you ended up going to after we got married. It was very strongly highlighted in terrifying ways, right? and I would say even at Moody, it was even more strongly highlighted at Moody when we were going there. That started to draw the picture for me, seeing how things were taught at Moody, and which was surprising to me when I got there. I was like, wait, what? Like people actually, like they would actually do the whole have the woman not stand on the stage thing and have the man behind her, and that kind of stuff. They actually did that in a very distinct, clear way, or sometimes they even like laid it out ahead of time that was what was going to happen because
otherwise the men wouldn't show up to chapel.
I guess.
Yeah.
Again, I don't. And anyway, and I saw that, and it was surprising to me to see that like people actually did that because that's not how my life had been prior to that. Not at least not in a way that was clear to me. I think it did happen. It was just a lot more subtle in my church growing up. They wouldn't like announce it so clearly, and they wouldn't make such distinct delineations between stage and not stage, and that sort of thing. But
Well, and there was just so much going on those stages.
Oh,
It's
for
hard
sure.
to tell.
Yeah. Right. Well,
Like a church stage.
yeah. Well, that was the whole thing with megachurch, right? Is like it was the whole thing was breaking from the norms of traditional church and doing all of the um, formal church things. Like everything they did was breaking from that, right? And
yeah,
so,
well,
like,
it's like the energy drink of churches,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Is their goal.
Right.
Make it palatable, make it fast-paced, make it appealing.
Yeah.
So people join as much as you can
Right.
get them to join, because that's like the whole business model is growth.
Yeah.
So that's why like your church that you used to go to keeps doing a different building and a bigger building and an add-on to this building,
Right.
and then a satellite campus over here and over there and in this city and that city and then around the world. That's like the whole point.
Yeah. And so they leaned really hard away from all of the old school stage pageantry of church, right? That wasn't so much of a thing, and into that kind of new. It's still stage pageantry, but it's a new kind of stage pageantry, right? With the lights, with the music, with the loudspeakers, the big screens, the really emotive speeches, and then in doing that they I don't know if they consciously did it, but they walked away from a lot of the hierarchical. I don't know, the phrase in my head is eye candy, but
no, that is exactly.
Because like at Moody, like they had the big chairs on stage, right, where the speakers would line up in these like throne-looking chairs, right, and a lot of churches had those, and my church didn't have anything like that, like even like the big pulpits, right? Lots of those old churches in Chicago I went to had these huge wood pulpits, right? And the church I grew up in, like the most the largest pulpit they had was just like this small clear plastic thing. It was the opposite of imposing, right?
Yeah,
it was literally
just
clear.
Just enough to put a Bible and some notes on.
Yeah, and then like after that they moved to more like the stool table setting.
The TED Talk setting.
Yeah, right. So there's so many things like that like an old church had that hierarchical, imposing feel that my mega church was kind of pushing back on. And so in that, like, there wasn't a lot of that imagery and feel of that you got that was built into a lot of those systems with the woman stands here and the man stands here, or wasn't there for me to observe. But I have a big but that I thought of. Like, while they didn't do that, the in church visual representation way, what they did do, and I didn't I didn't fully understand this later because it was just what I grew up with, and I thought it was how everybody lived and was normal. But in retrospect, they pushed really hard the whole focus on the family, nuclear family, husband, one man, one woman, 2.5 kids. Man is the head of the household. Woman teaches the kids, cooks. They pushed all of that super hard. So like, while they didn't necessarily and then they had the kind of natural patriarchal fallout of it was all men on the board and all men mostly preaching, except for the women's ministry leader. And again, as a kid, I just thought that's the way things were. Right. Right? And I didn't think of it in hierarchical terms.
It was designed to do that as well, because the spectacle of the Cirque du Soleil they have going on out front there is designed to be intriguing enough and basic enough and ambiguous enough that you draw people in. Once you have them there and they have committed to giving 10% of their income, because that's the first thing you have to do to have church membership in order to get the support of the church, that's when they send you to, you have to be in small group, you have to be in women's group, you have to be in men's group, and that's where they put that.
Yeah,
but
for sure. Well,
Yeah, and until you get past that that temple curtain, essentially, there's no way to know what the structure of the church actually is unless you know to ask specifically.
Right. Well, and my church was so big, right, that my lived experience, I had a lot of women leaders. Like I went to dance class, woman leader, right? I even had a woman leader in my first Christian Boy Scouts class that went there, which was super unusual. And I'm not sure. She was the wife of the guy who was running the program, and she was a teacher in one of the classes.
She was doing her Helpmeet.
Right, if you really back up. But again, from my perspective, as a kid, that was 5-6-year-old me. It was just normal to have a woman in a position of leadership, right? Because and like again in retrospect, that's not exactly what it was in reality. But that's what I saw it as from my position.
But again, that's the brownies, that's the Cub Scouts.
Yeah.
The woman is in the brownies and the Cub Scouts.
Yeah, right. Oh, for sure.
By the time you get to 13.
No, yeah, no women there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's my point, though. Like, and it's in that, and just trying to describe, like, how I saw it as a kid versus trying to look back on it and seeing it, and that it's complicated, complex, but because because as a kid you don't think about systems, and at least I didn't. I don't know, maybe some kids do. I was not one of those kids.
Yeah.
I was pretty I don't know, fancy free. But
we'll pause there, get you some more coconut water or something, and then we'll come back.
Okay.